On today's show, how have the Boston Celtics been able to expose the Dallas Mavericks in the finals so far? How was Dallas able to respond in Game 4? And are the criticisms about Luka Doncic's defense and complaining to the officials warranted? It's all coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free, because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the absolute best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive, because LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources for hiring. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process even easier. They just launched a feature that actually helps you write job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Mavs and Locked On NBA, Nick Angstadt, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube, just search Locked On Mavs. And Nick, the way this series has gone, man, Celtics go up 3-0. Mavs finally respond with a blowout win in Game 4, but it may be, a little too late in the series for it to ultimately matter. We might be manifesting, a Game 6, a Game 7 a little bit later in this segment. But for right now, what has Boston been able to expose thus far about this Dallas team?
Yeah, this Boston team, they're just really well built. I mean, they've got a lot of talent top to bottom of the roster. I think when they had Porzingis playing, I think that their spacing is just, this may be the best spaced team we've ever seen in NBA history. I mean, I don't think that I can remember a team that has their top 8 players all take 3 or more threes per game and can stretch the floor out and can space the floor. And then you have, at all times, basically 4 guys that can shoot, drive, pass. It's like, that is,
yeah, because even the Warriors, when they were dominant, they had liabilities that couldn't space the floor with, Kevon Looney, Draymond Green, depending on day of the week, whatever. Yeah.
And then every once in a while, they would go to their death lineup, and then that's their death lineup. The Celtics' death lineup is all the time. Like with Horford playing that same role. He's about, a little bigger than Draymond, but he can shoot the 3. He can do some stuff. And then when Porzingis comes out there, he can space all the way out to 30 feet. And so the spacing of them just created a really difficult, difficult way for the Mavericks to defend them. But then also their offense. I mean, also their defense too has been really great. They've got 2 all-defensive guards that can, were able to slow Kyrie down the first couple of games. And then when Kyrie doesn't have the ball, they're able to just like roam around and cause chaos. And so they're really, really well positioned and well suited to like guard a team like the Mavericks.
Look, a lot has been made, so far this series about Luka's kind of his complaining to the officials, the defensive effort, intensity, all that. We know that ESPN's Brian Windhorst just completely lambasted him after the Game 3 loss. How did Luka, I guess, kind of respond to those comments in Game 4? And from a bigger picture perspective, how much of that criticism is fair in your eyes?
Yeah, if you're going to come and say that the criticism itself is not fair, so you listen to the Windhorst rant, you listen to some of the other people going off, and Jason Kidd came to Luka's defense before Game 4 even and went on a whole thing. I talked about that on Locked On Mavs, played the clip, so if you want to hear that, go listen to my episode over the weekend. But the fact that Luka didn't complain to the refs barely at all in Game 4 was very, focused, driven, task at hand, all that. You can't say that it's a problem, that it's not a problem then, because he straightened up, it's always when the drill sergeant says, all right, get in a squat. And then he's like, hold the squat. And then all of a sudden he's like, all right, make sure, go deeper. And if you can go deeper in the squat, then that means you weren't as deep as you could go in the squat at the beginning. It's like, okay, it was a problem, right? And so I think it has been an issue, obviously. And I think the biggest part of it being an issue is that it affects his game sometimes because his head gets out of it. He, slow to get back on defense and things like that. And the Mavs need all 5 defenders at all times, which is one of the other defensive conversations about Luka, why it's so easy to pick on him there. But just the amount of complaining. LeBron does the same thing. I mean, like Jason Tatum complains almost just as much as Luka does. It's just not as loud and long and like detrimental to his team, basically. But you watch Jason Tatum in that game 4. I mean, he was at every moment he was complaining to a ref and he was waving him off and doing all kinds. Like every star in the NBA does it.
That's a fair point, but especially when it feels maybe like there's a microscope almost placed on Luka when he does it for one reason or another. Maybe it's because, right, you look at the Dallas side of things, right? Maybe it's because the Celtics are just afforded maybe that luxury of if Tatum is a little slow getting back, right, their defenders, their lineup out there isn't as doesn't rely on all 5 guys being in the right places at the right times to be able to get those stops defensively. I want to at least bring up here that through the first couple games of this series, Dereck Lively, who was one of the most important pieces for Dallas this entire postseason run, really struggled in those first couple games in Boston, then had a really strong game 3, game 4. Has he done anything in your eyes particularly to adjust, or is this just him just kind of settling in, a young player settling into the finals, I guess?
There's 3 elements with this Dereck Lively thing because it has been, such a contrast between 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4. There's a 20-year-old player adjusting to the intensity of the finals. There's also a 20-year-old player adjusting to playing on the road versus playing at home in those games. So maybe it was because they went home. Maybe he adjusted, maybe he went home. And then also, Porzingis played in the first 2 games, and he mirrored most of Lively's minutes in the first 2 games, and then he did not play in 3 and 4. And I'd love to give Dereck Lively a bunch of credit. I have on my show a bunch of times. His story is one of the greatest in the finals. This whole playoff run, he's one of the greatest stories that we can tell in the NBA. But Porzingis not being there, not stretching him out to the 3-point line, and not being somebody contend for rebounds with and things like that, that has affected it as well. And I think Dereck Lively's done a great job taking advantage of him not being on the floor because Porzingis is their only real 7-footer that they're going to play. They haven't played Luke Kornet yet. Tillman they're playing, but Tillman, people say, looks like just like a shorter version of Daniel Gafford. So he's not necessarily going out. He's huge and big, but he's not like a tall guy. And so Lively's done a good job taking advantage of it, but I think not having Porzingis has really helped him to thrive in this moment.
What's the number one thing that Dallas needs to do here in Game 5 to be able to win and keep their championship hopes alive?
I'm going to do my best Neil deGrasse Tyson and say that the stars must align for the Dallas Mavericks. Luka and Kyrie. Game 4 was the first game in this series where they both shot over 41% from the field. Like, that's a very simple, make shots, miss shots stats. It's not like these advanced analytics or anything like that. It's just literally field goal percentage.
Wait,
but
why'd you pick 41%? Is this a Dirk thing? Why are we going with 41?
Why would I? Do I have a Dirk thing? Is that like a... No, it's just the Luka and Kyrie shot 41%. I haven't shot 41% or better.
Right. Got it.
Together. Okay. It is just kind of how the number went out. It's like a, sort of an arbitrary number.
We can call it Kismet. All right, there we go.
But they haven't shot the ball well at the same time. They need to. They have to have together, both of them at the same time, 4 great games to win. And they had one in Game 4, and now they've got to do it 3 more times if they're going to win the finals.
Will the Dallas Mavericks be able to keep this momentum going and win Game 5 and bring the series back to Dallas for one more chance at another title? Or will the Celtics be able to close this thing out? You're going to have us covered for all of that and so much more. We're at Locked On Mavs. Nick, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
See you next Sunday for Game 7, Jackson.